Good evening. Welcome to the Pullman City Council meeting for this Tuesday, January the 10th, our first meeting of 2023. And with that, Dee, would you please call roll?
Mayor Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Benjamin.
Present.
Councilmember Dubin.
Here.
Councilmember Greto.
Here.
Councilmember McCall.
Here.
Councilmember Parks.
Here.
Councilmember Weller. Councilmember Wright.
Here.
Nathan Weller notified us that he could not be here tonight. Do I hear a motion to excuse?
So moved. Second.
Moved and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, some announcements. I've been joined with a number of mayors across the country in Move with the Mayor Vaccination Initiative, presented by the National Forum on Heart Disease and Stroke Prevention. There are a lot of reasons to stay up to date with your vaccinations, protecting yourself and your family, reducing the spread of vulnerable populations, alleviating the burden on our healthcare system. So please check with your doctor or pharmacist to see that what vaccines are right for you. And remember, working together makes our community much stronger. Yesterday was National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, and over the years, I've had the privilege of witnessing an outstanding dedication by our Pullman Police Department serving this city. We recognize our police officers and staff, as well as our law enforcement partners, our mutual aid people from WSU Police, Whitman County Sheriffs, Washington State Patrol for their exemplary courage, unwavering commitment to keeping our community safe, and we deeply appreciate their work. We also have some updates for our Pullman boards and commissions, the application period for the Environmental Resilience Commission, and we do have a number of applicants. Actually, I have more applicants than we actually have positions right now. And we're going to close that application period on the 15th of January. So if you still would like to apply, please do, and make sure you have your application in. You can just go to our website and you can find that. Parks and Recreation Commission and Civil Service Commission each have one position to fill, and you can find more details again on our website. The City of Pullman Wellness Committee wanted to develop a way for our community members to recognize city staff for the work they have done. Sometimes they've gone out of their way to help people, and I just heard that comment the other day from one of our residents who said, you know, our Public Works Department just did a fantastic job when we had a problem with our septic tank and everything else, and they knew that they had a sewer line close by, and they worked and got the plumbers and everybody else taken care of, and they just did a fantastic job. And we hear those from time to time. So our Wellness Committee said they're building on a program called Pullman Proud, and we've heard about that with hashtag Pullman Proud. So if you'd like to recognize a city employee for excellent service, you can fill out a Pullman Proud card in City Hall lobby or submit one online, and then we can make sure our city staff hears about that. Pullman small businesses and nonprofits can apply now for a simple, low-interest loan supported by the Washington State Department of Commerce. It's called the Small Business Flex Fund. So interested parties should visit smallbusinessflexfund.org or reach out to our Economic Development Director, Jen Hackman, and that phone number is 338-3168 to learn more. Application deadline will be mid-February. Those are our announcements tonight. Next comes on the agenda is confirmation of appointments. We have a couple of people that we're recommending for the Lodging Tax Commission. I would also like to say, before we go for this, I want to thank Barb Wachter for her excellent work on the LTAC committee for a number of years. Actually, we look back about she's been serving us since 2007 on that from the Hilltop Hotel. And it's always nice to move things around. It's one of the things we heard from the council. It'd be nice if we can move people around to get some different perspectives on this. And so we're coming up with a couple of names for you. PJ Sanchez, who's been on it, wanted to continue to serve. And again, we have different terms on this. And then Megan Wiley, who is with the Holiday Inn Express, is the new person that we're going to try and put on this, pending confirmation from the council. So I am recommending those two names for you tonight. Pat, since you've been on that committee for a long time, if you want to say anything about it, we certainly would open it for you.
Well, it's interesting, the two positions that are coming up for appointment represent the two critical pieces of the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, and that is the people who collect the tax, so that would be the hotel motel industry people, and then the people who are the beneficiaries of that tax, and typically would be appointed, for example, PJ Sanchez, who actually works for Washington Trust Bank, but is on the board of directors for the Pullman Chamber of Commerce. and the Pullman Chamber is a longtime recipient of lodging tax dollars, and so he would represent that recipient group. So we're pleased that we have a nice, well-rounded group to bring to you and new members to appoint. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. With that, recommending P.J. Sanchez and Megan Wiley. And I open the floor to the council.
Move to appoint P.J. Sanchez and Megan Wiley to the LTAC.
Second.
Moved and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, we now move to presentations, something we always enjoy because we're going to hear more progress. We're going to start with Sean Colts, our Public Works Director, who does the introduction.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight we've got a presentation on an update on Project Downtown Pullman, and I will load the slideshow here. And I think you'll see through the presentation tonight how much progress our Welch-Comer consultant engineering team has made. It's been pretty impressive to watch them from my standpoint and getting to see everything that happens under the hood. They're doing a great job, and you'll see some of those visuals tonight. We'll, of course, be looking for some input from you all tonight. A lot to go through, but we'll move through it as quickly as we can, and I'll pass on to Matt Gillis with Welch-Comer.
Thanks, Sean. Good evening, Mayor, Council. With me tonight, as you've seen many times, are Courtney and Dell, part of the key members of the team. At any point, feel free to interrupt and ask questions. We would like your input. We need your input. This is primarily a pretty robust agenda. I won't go through all of these so we can keep moving, but there's quite a bit to talk about. We're particularly excited to be able to show some of the progress in the form of some animations that I think are really going to solidify in your mind what this can potentially look like. And so we're excited, but again, we welcome the feedback. You've all seen this slide a few times now. This is just a quick reminder that this is a long process. The lifetime of this project is measured in years at this point, where we started with the published, where are we at? Oh well. The published master plan a couple years ago. We finished up the concept design early last year. Now we're in the throes of the design phase with every intent to be building something this late spring and summer, and I'll show you a schedule here fairly quickly. From a scope standpoint, again, I won't belabor this too long. We've talked about this many times. I would say the premier project that we have, premier in terms of cost and length of time from a schedule standpoint, is Main Street. That's the main project. We also have Grand. Grand is mostly everything but the asphalt, so the sidewalks. There's also some trail work up on Davis. Olson Street, we've got some, and I'll get into some these details here as we go through the presentation. Pine Street Plaza, and then pavement marking changes on Pine and Kamiakin, and that's what we talked about last time. I remember it was really cold outside when we last met. From a design schedule standpoint, this is not construction schedule. We are right there in the middle of January. This is our third presentation before you, our third update. Later this month, we will go back to our design steering committee. We'll ask them for some specific feedback. Things like, what should the lights look like? What color palette should our surfacing be from either colored concrete or clay paver standpoint? A lot of those details, we're finally getting into the details. And then we'll be back before you last day of February for we'll call it 90% presentation and essentially an authorization to go to bid. Then we'll bid, and then we'll probably start construction shortly thereafter, which I'll cover later on. I'm going to quickly turn it over to Courtney to talk about our engagement during the design phase.
Good evening, Mayor Johnson, members of the Pullman City Council. It's a pleasure to be here with you in this new year. As you'll recall, the Phase 2, the design phase public engagement, is primarily focused on raising community awareness, anticipating and mitigating construction challenges, and doing that in a way that is very collaborative with the stakeholders, the steering committee, and the council. Specifically, this is a time for our consulting team to work with those property owners who will be impacted, to make sure that they're aware of opportunities that they might want to take advantage of, to do something like put in a fire line or put in a grease trap interceptor if they're thinking about enabling a restaurant use in their building. It's also a great time to work with our partners at the City of Pullman. I'd like to thank Jennifer Hackman, the City of Pullman's Economic Development Manager, Marie Dimanowski at the Pullman Chamber, and Holly Greystone at the Downtown Pullman Association for their really thoughtful and proactive collaboration on trying to make sure that your downtown businesses have all the tools available to anticipate the impact of construction. And we'll talk through that a little bit more, but I think it speaks to the care that those professionals put into their community, that we're meeting every other week to make sure that we're touching base about what tools are available, what resources, and asking those stakeholders what they might need that we could find resources for. With regard to those steering committee meetings, we're working through final design and construction phasing recommendations. We appreciate the opportunity to work with the steering committee. They have an inherent knowledge about the neighborhood that is really helpful for us. The stakeholder engagement has been really effective. Some of you attended a really great meeting here on December 14th with property and business owners to talk about both the design elements, but also looking ahead to what does construction look like. We're still in a point where we can predict and anticipate challenges and swerve to avoid them, to use a bit of a metaphor, so that we make room, because there will always be challenges during construction. But through that engagement, we're really able to identify hurdles and work to overcome them. The community will see general updates soon to come on the website, and then of course these city council presentations are a really effective way to let the community see the process that we, the City of Pullman, and your consulting team have gone through to get to this 60% complete design. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Matt and just say that we've got some really fun images to show you.
Thanks, Courtney. So as I mentioned, we're about 60% of the way through design, and in most projects, early in design, we get to show beautiful pictures and concepts and whatnot. As we move deeper into the nuts and bolts, the products can tend to get more utilitarian. It doesn't mean they're not important. They're very, very important. They're just, sometimes they're less flashy. And so we spent a little extra time developing some ways to show our progress, rather than just black and white set of plans. And so we'll go through several of these items. Some of them will be plans like this, but I'm going to cover Main Street first, and I'm just going to talk about what's between the curbs. And really what that means is the curb alignments, the center line alignment, and the lane configuration. If you remember, there's going to be some changes to the lane configuration. We will keep 3 lanes on Main Street between Grand and Kamiakin, but then we transition to 2 lanes as we head east. I realize that's opposite to traffic, but we head, then we're 2 lanes from Kamiakin to the very east end of the project. There are several changes to the curbs at the intersections where we've introduced curb bulbs to better define where the parallel parking lies, and also to shorten the crosswalks, as we've discussed before. One item that I'd like to point out in green here is the bike lane. We've worked very closely with the DOT and staff to figure out how to accommodate multi-uses, and bicycles are certainly one of those. And the design ended up landing where the bike lane is up on the sidewalk in a specifically delineated facility. It does venture back onto Main Street, and I'm sorry, my pointer's not working, but it does venture onto Main Street at Kamiakin, and then they're pointed north on Kamiakin to push them up to campus. And I don't know if you remember when we talked, that some of the questions were, well, why doesn't the bike lane stay on Main Street all the way to Grand? From a safety standpoint, and the DOT agreed, that just wasn't a safe situation. And so this is what we feel is the best solution from a bike facility standpoint. And then as we head further east, we've got parallel parking where we can get it, 2 lanes all the way through to Spring Street. That yellow will not be yellow. That's just to point out that there's a bit of an island there. It'll probably be some type of white paint. So that's just a quick overview of the lane configuration. It shouldn't be new. That hasn't changed for quite some time. I'm going to turn it over to Dell to talk through some of the probably more interesting stuff that's outside of the curb. So Dell?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Nice to see you again. The drawings that Matt just walked through with you are examples of the actual base drawings for the construction documents. The drawings that I'll walk through with you here are representative of that drawing, but they were done at a little bit earlier stage when we were starting to lay out tree locations. You can see the red band along the curb that would be above the utilities of power and water for irrigation. And you can see that locations of plantings have been installed there on the drawing. And we're starting to suggest where we might see major fields of pavers or changes in the color and the texture on the sidewalks. We're looking here at the intersection of Grand and Main, and also moving eastward to Kamiakin, and then on to the Pine Street Plaza area. You can see that this is where we're developing and taking off quantities of what those paver areas might be and their shapes and geometry, all coordinated with the parking stalls where lights would be installed as well, and even talking about the appropriate scoring of the concrete at this stage. So this represents a little bit more colored version, preliminary version of what Matt just showed you, and it would also be reflected in the landscape drawings that will be part of the construction package for the city to review. And moving all the way down to Paradise and Spring, you can see the patterning remains. The bike lane is not colored in this version, but you can see it there on the top or the north side of the street. We've coordinated where handicap stalls will be located. Matt will point those out to you later in the presentation. And again, I think this one starts to show the expanded sidewalk sections through the 2-lane stretch of Main Street, and some of the upcoming drawings will show, or illustrations and programs are going to show that in much greater detail. We put this slide in here. I'm not sure whether council has seen this slide. I know we've shared it with our steering committee members in the past. And this is in Priest River, Idaho. It's a project that Matt and I worked on here a few years ago. And the reason we put it in was to suggest to you a somewhat similar character to what we're proposing for your downtown, in that where new trees will be planted, at their base there's a larger space for the trees root zone to collect air. All of these planter areas and trees will be irrigated. But to show you what that character might start to appear like, we're giving some considerable thought to the planting types that would be in those planters. They're going to be selected for their simplicity of maintenance and their durability for how long they can survive with snow piled on top of them. That's always going to be a concern for us. You can also see in this example, those are clay pavers that were used here, is what we're suggesting here for Pullman. Much more vibrant color. They're not going to fade. They're very durable, not necessarily affected by your salts or de-icers like the concrete pavers can be.
Okay. We're going to show a series of 5 or 6 animations that I think will help you visualize what this may look like. And if you'd like to see them multiple times, just let me know. We can go backwards. The first one will be an overhead view starting at Main and Grand and essentially flying east, looking straight down. And you'll see all the character of the improvements here. So that's Main and Grand there, busiest intersection. Here's where we have the 3-lane section between Grand and Kamiakin, slightly narrower sidewalks because of that 3rd lane. There's the Kamiakin intersection where we have the transition from, we lose a lane there. And this is where that bike lane meanders back onto the street so that we can avoid some pedestrian conflicts and then send them north on the dedicated Kamiakin bike lane. This next video picks up right where this one leaves off and continues to the east. So we have the much wider sidewalks on both sides. You see the green bike lane. That's the Pine Street Plaza. And I might play this one again just because it went by a little fast. You see all the trees and the lights. And there's Pine Street Plaza there. Again, we carry on the 2 lanes. This is Main and Grand looking north and east. Pretty quick video. That's traffic driving at you from the east heading west. This is north side of Main, west of Pine, walking west, where we have the wider sidewalk area. And you see that bike lane there. Let me play that one again. You see the planter areas and the trees and the bike lane. Plenty of room for tables. This next one is a block to the west, where we're back to the 3-lane section. It's a little bit shorter video, but you'll notice that the sidewalk is narrower because we have that extra lane. But it's still wider than it was, slightly wider than it was. And then finally, this video is an isometric aerial shot heading with traffic to the west. So you see where Paradise comes in to Main there. You see the Evolve building on the left. See the nice sidewalk, nice wide sidewalk both sides. The trees are aligned with the light poles. Here is the intersection of Main and Pine, intended to slow traffic, control traffic a bit, improve safety. And then here's where we transition from the 2 lanes to 3 lanes at Kamiakin. Would anyone like to see those again? Yes? Okay. Okay.
Can you show more east, because it's very unclear where it ends, where this starts, like where the actual improvements are starting?
From Spring Street.
Where do you start?
Oh, that last video?
Yeah, I'm hearing the assembly.
So it starts right, it's just out of frame. So it's right below where the, it's right at Spring Street.
That's Roost and Bell Tower on the left.
So it does not start at the visitor center?
No, it starts at,
The animation does not start that. Where does the work start? On the drawings, at Spring Street.
currently the work starts at Spring Street. And I can pause this, or if you like to see a specific location, happy to do it. Yes, ma'am.
I think maybe Judy's question is, where does the construction start on the east side of the Springs and Main intersection?
Currently, the limits of the design are at the east edge of the Spring intersection.
So that's right in front of the visitor center.
Right.
So I can, let me,
It includes that intersection.
That's my big thing, it's like connecting the
So the
So-
crosswalks and everything is probably what, I'm down there as well, so I know what Judy's talking about. So the sidewalks at that intersection, will things get improved there and have the same type of bump outs and all that down
Yeah, that's a pretty good representation right there. You see that just on the right, maybe this will work. There we go. So here's Spring Street. And so right now, the proposed east limits of construction are the west limits of that intersection. I may have said east limits. I meant west limits.
So it's not the east.
Visitor center and it's not doing that weird crosswalk. That's a pretty dangerous. There's those weird lights, there's different streets and people get a walk signal and they go and cars don't think, so they're looking against the wrong light and that's, I do, wasn't allowed to connect to the visitor center as well. So that's just.
Matt, we didn't talk about that in the meeting that much, but that intersection and then the Spring Street where, Paradise intersects with Main, or merges back into Main. Those are problem areas. And for anyone that's a pedestrian, people speed up right there, and that turns into a speedway. Basically, that little section to the bridge is all of a sudden a really fast area.
Well, that's great feedback. We can circle back with staff and see if there's opportunity, see if we need to expand a little bit. Happy to do that. So I don't want to waste your time, so if you'd like me to go through these real quick, happy to do it, or just tell me to move on. Either way is fine. Yes, ma'am.
I just have a quick question, and I noticed that you've got the parallel parking spaces delineated. Is that going to happen?
I don't know that yet. We've been talking with staff about that. I don't know if Sean has resolved that at this point, but it's, just because they're shown here doesn't mean we're proposing that.
Okay.
So that's an option, certainly, if council would like to weigh in, we'd love to hear your feedback on that. I think there's an option, if we don't paint those, it's easier from a maintenance standpoint, but it also allows more flexibility for the cars and where they park. In this case, we're kind of locking in where the cars park, and there's also a question of how long do you make those? Of course, we have a lot more pickups in Pullman, and so we'd have a tendency to probably make some of those longer and then maybe have some compact spaces. But my leaning, and I think my recommendation would be actually not to paint those spaces. And that's partially from a maintenance standpoint, but partially to allow that flexibility in how the cars are laid out.
I think we've heard before from a previous Public Works Director, they figured out they could get actually more cars in there when they did not delineate it.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Matt, I have one question on the bike path. So you're saying that from Spring to, I guess that would be Kamiakin, there is a bike path on Main Street, but then it'll veer off and the bikes have to go a different path. They can't continue down Main Street.
They can. We're just not providing a separate facility for them.
So there will not be a continuing bike path all the way through Main Street.
Correct.
Okay.
From a safety standpoint, Grand is very busy and pretty narrow to be intentionally putting bikes out onto the street. And so the thought was, as you can see on the screen, is to put people back onto the street and then let them turn north on Kamiakin where there is a dedicated bike lane and another bike path system to provide some connectivity. If they want to continue west, they can then take a left on Olson, which will have sharrows, so it's far more appropriate for bicycles than Main between Grand and Kamiakin. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, but bikers could go into the street then,
Sure.
potentially. Okay,
They certainly can. Legally, they can, yes.
legally, yeah. Okay, thank you.
So a follow-up question on the sharrows on Olson. So the sharrows would be going both directions, so you could, from Kamiakin, turn at Olson to get to Grand, but then what would be the process for the bikes to get from the right side of the road diagonal to the left side, which was where then the bike path starts to goes up the hill?
I think I'm a cyclist, so I'm thinking what I would do and what the law would tell me to do. Could be two different things. The bicyclist could dismount at Olson and become a pedestrian, walk their bike across, right? Or they could ride through the intersection and stay on street, on the right side of the street. Or they could dismount on the far side of the intersection and become a pedestrian and then get to the shared use path there. Are these animations helpful for? Yes. Good. And the last one. Okay, permission to move on? Okay. Okay, so that was Main Street. We're still on the 60% design update. Grand Avenue, as I touched on earlier tonight and in previous meetings, the scope of Grand is to leave the asphalt as is, to essentially remove and replace the sidewalk on the west side and accompanying features, the sidewalk, the signs, the lights, the irrigation, all of that, and any pavers that are there, and replace them. So the width will stay the same. On the east side, it's a little bit different, as we talked about before. That's the top of Dry Creek. And the top of that structure is not in fantastic shape, as you can see on that image at the bottom. So we're trying to figure out the best way to rehabilitate that surface because it's not a replacement. We're not replacing that lid. We're just trying to rehabilitate that surface. So we've got a few options, nothing set in stone yet. Any questions on Grand? Yes, ma'am.
I noticed from Main to just before this picture on the east side, there were no plantings or anything, like trees were taken out, but there was no landscaping shown. Is that just because it's not part of this phase right now, or?
No, it's more because it's below that sidewalk that you see on that picture.
Yes.
Is a big void. It's a big stream, an underground stream.
Right, but all the way back to Main Street as well, heading?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it runs along that whole east length.
Okay,
Far south of our project.
that's right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Davis Way. So the Davis scope is smaller comparatively. Right now, if you look at that bottom left photo, we have this 4 or 5, 6 foot sidewalk on the south side of the roadway. Our intent is to remove that and replace that with a nice wide shared use path, 10 to 12 feet wide, to match into what's already there further up the road around the corner there. Along with that, we're proposing, if you remember, removing a few parking stalls on that south side rather, so that we can add a dedicated right turn lane to help with our traffic challenges. Olson, also, in comparison to Main, smaller. There's 3 primary elements associated with Olson. One is pavement marking changes. Like Grand, we are not removing and replacing asphalt or roadway, but we're going to remove the parallel parking stalls and restripe it to angle parking. I think that gains us about 8 stalls in the downtown, which is great. Also, those shaded areas on the ends of Olson, those are new curb bulbs. So that will help us be ADA compliant. That will also help us to shorten the crosswalks, which improves pedestrian safety significantly. And then there will be some signal work associated at both ends there. So that is Olson. And then both Pine and Kamiakin, the same, at least from Main Street south, really just pavement marking changes, just going from parallel on both sides to angle parking on one side. You might notice that the parking extends south of Paradise. The reason we're doing that is because we need the intersection to line up. If we don't do it, then there's this weird shift that nobody would be happy about. So that's Kamiakin. Pine's almost identical, where we have that change there. Last couple meetings, there's been discussion at this level and the staff level about ADA parking. I reported last time we are following a standard that is acceptable to staff. Essentially, it means we're providing an ADA stall, one ADA accessible stall per block associated with our project, and we are in fact doing that. This is an older image. There's some small modifications as the design progresses, but for discussion purposes, that hasn't changed. This might be new to you. There is significant traffic signal work proposed with this project. Traffic signals are expensive, but if we can get them done, these ones shown in green will be implemented with we'll call it a smart traffic system, where the signals adapt autonomously. For example, the things are going smooth, the signals are fine, everything's great, and then a football game lets out. Well, the signals, they adjust, they sense, oh, I can't clear all the cars out with my regular cycling. I need to increase green times just to clear traffic out. So that's what this software will do when we add it to the new signals. It's called Centrax. And it will communicate with 3 signals that already talk to each other. So 8 signals will be communicating, and it should make a pretty big difference. And this becomes a bigger deal when we think about Grand. When we've got the DOT, we know in 5, 8, 10 years, they could be knocking on the door saying, okay, your level of service has dropped enough to where you've got to convert from 3 lanes to 5 lanes, which means you lose all of your on-street parking. Doing things like this might delay that. I don't know how long, but it moves us in the correct direction. Any questions on that? Yes, ma'am.
So where are the other 3 signals that do communicate?
Oh, they're right there in the upper right. They're at Whitman and Grand, Stadium and Main, and Bishop and Main.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Dell. He's going to talk about some more items.
So this is an idea that I think you are familiar with. It's one that we have spoken about in the past. As part of limited improvements that we're exploring for Pine Street Plaza, some of which may deal with some electrical lines underground to get lighting to certain points within the plaza. We've also spoken about the potential for including a small children's play area or structure. But the other idea that has been presented was, is there a way to engage more activity within the plaza by inviting people closer to the river? And through our public meetings that we held through the concept plan, an awful lot of comments about, we've got this asset of a natural feature, this river right in our downtown. How can we put that in as possibly part of the project? So the idea is to utilize that south bank there at the bridge and to install something similar to what you see in that image on the right, which is a project that Matt and I worked on in Coeur d'Alene along the Spokane River, which essentially does the same thing. It invites people down to the water's edge. Not a place to jump into the water or anything like that, but to get down nearer to the water. So this one is still being considered as part of the base package, and an idea I think that you folks have seen. The steering committee has been very positive with this idea, as well as some of the comments we've heard from the public. Matt mentioned that we are anticipating later this month meeting again with our steering committee. It's at this stage now that we have sort of the framework of the street layout, the sidewalk widths, everything, all of the utility aspects of lights and things like that positioned on our plan. Now we're going to start looking and exploring what is the proper character of those types of street furnishings. These are obviously different examples. Some of them have a little bit more of a curvilinear, curlicue feel. So the one in the center is very close to some of the lights that exist within Pine Street Plaza right now in terms of the character and that very common acorn light fixture. And they all come with different opportunities. The image that you see on the left, we will take advantage of that type of an installation along Main Street, where we won't have all of the lights, tall street lights, but we will have some along Main. And at that point, we will probably have some sort of an armature attached to that taller pole that can put light there on the sidewalk as well. So we'll be meeting with the steering committee discussing light types, street furniture of all types, trash cans, bench types, bollard types, lighting, so that we can explore if there's a desire to kind of keep an entire family of furniture that have similar characteristics of color and materiality, etc. In fact, that trash receptacle on the right and the bench in the background are very similar to some of the furniture that you have today in Pine Street Plaza. So hopefully we'll get some of that direction later in the month, and we'll move on and you'll be able to see some of their selections.
The light selections also include accessories for banners, because that also is coming out of another committee we have. They've shown us some good examples of banners and how we can sectionalize the entire city.
Yep, I think, yes, sir, the banners are an important element. The image I showed you earlier of the Priest River, you may have recall there was a banner on one of those light poles. The light pole in the center, this is another shot of the Priest River project. One reason why we think that's a very versatile pole and light combination is you can kind of see some fluted slots on that pole. That one is set up so that there are attachments that slide into those slots. That attachment's what's supporting that arm that holds those hanging flower baskets. They have similar attachments that directly fit to those slots that hold banners, all kinds of opportunities. So it's a very versatile pole. I should say that the reason we like that is that a lot of times, and you may have seen it in the past in different communities and such, if people, after the project is done, after the fact, and they feel they need to add a street sign or something to the pole, a lot of times they'll get attached with a simple band clamp or something that looks a little bit off. That slotted pole also has an attachment for street signs to be added to it as well. So the other group that we have met with a couple of times, and we just met with them yesterday, is our Walk of Fame committee. And as you all know, the diamonds in the sidewalk today, we don't feel that we're going to be able to salvage those through this large demolition effort that'll take place, so that we're now contemplating, and this image on the right is a plan view, that same early plan view that I showed you as part of the entire base. It was decided that we congregate all of the honorees in this one intersection. And the blue, since our pointer's not working, let me see if I can Matt, how did you, there we go. If I can point out here, let's see. Oh. I'll get it for you here. There's a square right there. There's a corresponding one there, across the street here, and across the street here. That's where we're looking in general to place what will now be more of a vertical element that will be the Walk of Fame. And there's 4 categories. Each one of these locations would be a specific category. You can see that the way we're looking at placing them, that there's plenty of room around them so that we can have panels that can be displayed on multiple sides, have panels long enough that there'll be plenty of room for additional names into the future. ADA considerations for movement around them. And the nice thing here is that, and I've explained this as well today in our meeting with our signage committee, is that under this scheme, this intersection really becomes your 100% intersection. It's where all of the aspects of your streetscape are on display, integrated into the design, and then it kind of bleeds eastward and westward from there. But at this point, with the Walk of Fame, you cross a street in one direction and then again in another direction, you are able to now view all of the names of all of the honorees. So what we talked about with the folks, and these are some quick sketches that were developed as ideas. We went through each of these options. The 2 on the left were basically more of a concrete element that could have polished granite displaying names. All of them were looked to be lighted so that we're not only lighting the element itself, but have light shining on the plaque that would have the names. Different shapes, you can see by the scale of the people about the size they are, and that's roughly in that 7.5 to maybe as high as 8 feet. And through the discussions, the committee gravitated towards the one that you see on the right, the 3rd one, which has more of a, the concept behind this one is that it's more of a metal material, a Core-10 steel that tends to be more of a rusted steel. I've noticed this afternoon when I took a walk through the city that you have a number of planters on your sidewalk that appear to be Core-10 steel, so that dark orange-brown color. There would be panels on all 4 sides. There would be some custom cutout potential to this element so that an interior light in the evening, you could see the column itself being lit, and then opportunities for lighting on each of the panels. Now, the one element that the committee asked us to further explore is more of a cap on top of that element that could have the name of the category at the highest point on each column. It would slightly overhang the edge so that we could also then have a light up in that shines down on the plaques. They like the idea of the plaques being black polished granite, so that names could easily be added to it over time. So we'll be developing that one in more of a final detail. Any questions on any of those? Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, can I take you back to the light fixtures, please? The thought that I had is that at some time in the future, we may be looking at providing small cell service in our area. And I know that in some places where that does currently exist, that they will use the light poles as a place to mount those devices. So I guess my question is, alongside the banner question, will there be an ability to accommodate that should we get to that point? Again, it's a future.
I don't believe it is currently something that we've been planning on, but I don't know why we couldn't bring that up with our electrical engineer and discuss how that option might be incorporated.
I mean, it's been, Eileen, you remember maybe about 3 or 4
Absolutely,
years ago
Yeah,
that we
5G,
had
so
that,
they talked about
yeah,
it.
that discussion.
And I think Spokane has some of that in their light fixtures.
Okay, yeah, we'll make note of that and make sure that we get a chance to look at how we can incorporate that. I also skipped over, if you look at that light in the center at the very top, you'll see just below the light fixture, there's an electrical outlet at that height. At the base of it, just above the shrub, you can see there's another electrical outlet. And there's also in that project and what we're proposing on this project to have an electrical outlet at each tree. So that the one at the top gives an opportunity for festival lighting at different times of the year with different ornamentation high. The ones at the lower level could be used for any kind of street fair activities that might occur. And then obviously the ones at the trees for festival lighting directly on the trees. As you can imagine, there's multiple circuits and things happening that way. But thank you for reminding me.
Okay, it has to be asked, what prevents a person with a long extension cord charging up their electrical vehicle in that extent?
Probably the controls of whether or not you want to have them continuously on at the base. Last thing I'll visit with you about is we met this afternoon with the Wayfinding Committee. This plan is still, this plan here is actually their most updated plan as to where they would like to have kiosks located within the downtown, and where you see the red asterisks. Those are the locations of kiosks. We have some other signage elements that we talked about with regard to directing visitors and vehicles for where they can access public parking. There's also going to be there's obviously, as part of the overall construction package, a overall signage plan with street signs, things like that. So now that we have this information, they got it to us a couple of days ago, they've shared with us the character of what they think their kiosks should be. We talked a little bit today about the opportunity to potentially work with the design of the kiosk to also maybe have some of the character elements of what we're talking about with the Walk of Fame. One of their examples they showed us had that opportunity so that those elements might have some similarities and be readily distinguishable. Now that we know the general locations that the wayfinding folks would like to incorporate these elements, we'll start putting them into an exact location within the plan and accommodating them with, at the kiosk, potentially power so that they can be lit, and a footing or foundation that can accommodate them. Any questions on that? Okay. I'll turn it over to Courtney.
As we continue to move through this final design process, there's a lot of stakeholders to communicate with. And I don't need to go through all of that, but one of the really important things for this community to understand is that everybody plays a role in the project going well, and that at the end of the day, the project is successful in 2 or 3 years when we see those sidewalks alive and vibrant with business and community uses. So in terms of construction, we're able to control and anticipate things to a certain extent. We work with the city of Pullman to write the contract in the bid document. It's up to the contractor to execute the contract, and it's up to Welch-Comer and our engineering inspectors to enforce the contract. So part of what's been really helpful in working with our colleagues to anticipate what the community is concerned about we can write that into that contract. And so the meeting that we held here in December was really helpful in helping us gather information about the things that need to be specific to Pullman in that contract. So we're really grateful to the community members who participated in it. Again, grateful to those partners of the City of Pullman, the Downtown Pullman Association, and the Pullman Chamber. As we work to go into the construction phase, it's really important to kind of think about, and I'm glad you can see me talk with my hands here, but to think about communication as a hierarchy of tailoring that communication tool to the audience and to the urgency. A weekly newsletter is a point of discussion. Another thing that we have talked about is, when is it appropriate to text a property owner or a business owner? How do we make sure that we give people as much advance notice as possible while still being timely? And how do we make sure that business owners can share that information with their staff? A phone call to a business owner is always a great point of contact, but then they have to turn back around and say the same thing, and is that the most efficient for them? So the communication will be based around business impact mitigation, construction schedule, vehicular traffic control, and utility access and disruption. We'll use a variety of tools. We're really grateful to one of the community members who pointed out that you can actually work with Google Maps to update Google Maps to show that the sidewalk is open even if the road is closed, which I think is phenomenal and we were unaware of. So again, appreciate that input. We have a variety of audiences, business owners, residents, the broad community, and really our goal here is to make sure that during construction, the community knows that you will still be able to get to businesses, businesses will still be open, and it's really critical during this delicate time that we support these downtown businesses. Matt, I'm gonna let you take this one.
Thanks, Courtney. So when we get out there and we're building the projects, there will be challenges in this confined area that's got a lot of history and a lot of unknowns, especially underground. There'll be changes or disruptions in access. There'll be noise and vibrations and dust, and we'll do everything we can to mitigate that. There'll be changes to deliveries and pickups that we'll have to work with business owners to figure out, and there'll be surprises. There's something odd buried underneath Main Street. I'm fully confident in that, and we're gonna find it. And then we'll deal with it. But we know these things. We know we're gonna encounter these things, so how do we mitigate them? Because we are very sensitive to the fact that we are here and we're doing this project for the business owners. And so it's important, we understand the importance of us doing what is possible to make this as painless as possible. And so one is communication, as Courtney mentioned, that's critical. We'll be outreaching to the public in any number of ways, which I'll get into in just a moment. Things that we can do but to maximize access to businesses. One example is we could tell the contractor, okay, the site is yours. You can tear out all the sidewalk, and then 12 weeks later, you can put back all the sidewalk. That's not gonna work because people can't get into Pups and Cups or wherever. Instead, I think what we need to do is something more like, okay, Mr. Contractor, you have access to one block at a time. In fact, you have access to the north side, one block at a time. So you can come in that block only, you can tear out the sidewalk, but you have to stay right there. And then you do your grading, remove some tree roots most likely, form the sidewalk, pour the sidewalk, let it cure. And maybe you're not doing all 15, 19 feet, maybe it's 7 feet wide up against the building, but then you open it back up to pedestrians so people can get in and around. As far as the road and utilities, we'll get to that in a minute. That's probably the road we're heading down to minimize that negative impact. Other things that we do, it starts with a clean contract, a clean set of construction documents that the contractor is obligated to perform. So that's the specifications and the plans. And then our job and the city's job is to enforce that contract, and we are happy to do so. We're firm, but we're fair with the contractor, but I have no hesitation about holding their feet to the fire on behalf of the city. We will have an on-site representative or representatives based on what's going on. They're doing many things. They're tracking quantities, they're ensuring the work's being done in accordance with the plans and specs, but they're also visiting the businesses, the owners and the tenants, understanding what the challenges are, what we can do to minimize certain issues. Sometimes we can do nothing, but oftentimes they just want to be heard, and we do what we can. There'll be a weekly construction meetings with the contractor and their subs and all the utility companies, where we hash out all kinds of stuff. Some of the most important things are, what surprises do we need to know about? How's our progress going? What will we be doing in the next couple of weeks? And so we track all that very, very closely. It's yet to be determined exactly how we get the word out on what the contractor will be up to in the coming days or weeks. One tool that we found very effective is a newsletter that we send out. Typically, it's once a month or every 2 weeks. This type of project, it probably could be every 2 weeks, but we can just share as much information as we know. So it can be a newsletter, it can be a press release, it can be a social media blast. However the city wants to do it, we're happy to conform with whatever works for you. Any questions on, that was pretty quick, but any questions on what's coming?
One thing I see, on the west side, and a lot of times in WashDOT construction, is they'll have their signage out several weeks before the event's going to take place, so people know that this off-ramp is not going to be used. Are you going to try and use WashDOT since they have signage like that?
We can certainly do that, and it may be easier because it's their road.
Yeah.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. One part of this project we would really like input on is what is closed and what is open. So there's a couple ways to look at how we build. Think of Main Street right now. So we could say, okay, contractor, you have to keep 1 lane of traffic or 2 lanes of traffic open on Main Street at all times during construction. And they'll say, okay. So what that will do is that will drive up our price, and that will lengthen our contract, okay? But there's still traffic, right? There's some access from a vehicular standpoint through Main Street. We recommend, and it's easier for me to say, I'm not the policymaker, but we recommend essentially ripping the Band-Aid off as quickly as possible. We close Main Street to vehicles. Pedestrian access will remain, but we close it to vehicles. We work through things like deliveries, emergency access, mail delivery, those types of things. We run 2-way traffic on Paradise, okay? And we've worked this out in concept with the DOT, and this is acceptable. We've got some details to work out. So Paradise becomes 2-way. There becomes a temporary signal set up here at Paradise to accommodate the new direction. We've got some turning movement challenges, especially, where are you at? For trucks. So we would have a temporary truck bypass. I believe it's Bishop. Is that correct? On Bishop to get trucks through the site so they don't find themselves trying to turn right here. They can do it. It's not like it'll be gridlock, but as many trucks as we can keep out of this area, the better. So this is probably the first time you're hearing about this idea and proposal. I am curious how you feel about it, meaning the full vehicular closure of Main Street.
Yeah, I am on. Yeah, I can see how utilizing Paradise in this way would really help transit, because one of my concerns is because we have transit going along Main Street, and so I think this would help And again, with those turning considerations, we loop transit into these discussions as well to figure out what they can and cannot do with the equipment that we have. And I think school buses as well would be maybe better served by having that continual flow provided by Paradise rather than trying to squeeze things through Main on one lane with buses.
Yeah, and uneven roads and, equipment everywhere. Yes, ma'am.
Ann?
I have a question about the Bishop option. There will be construction, if I'm correct, Sean, down in front of the Holiday Inn area. How does that look with truck traffic being diverted there?
Yeah, that's a great question. And if you drive Bishop, one of the things that you'll notice is that the two-way center turn lane is actually in pretty good shape. So we're not going to be peeling off that asphalt in the two-way center turn lane. And what that means is that we can keep one of the drive lanes open at all times. So essentially you'll have two-way traffic on Bishop the whole time we're doing construction on it. So that's the key element of that project.
Thank you.
One other thing that we talked about one time when we had some emergency planning because of either a main break or something like that is moving some trucks along Terraview, coming off 270, using Terraview to get through, and then they right on Grand Avenue. Is that possible? And we have a very drivable roundabout there, and so that I know that can work. Is another possibility. And truckers usually seem to find the best way anyway. They seem to, but at least giving them some more options than just Bishop Boulevard.
Whatever those routes are, we would have advanced signing, so the trucks would realize it. It doesn't mean they'll always use it, but it will be signed accordingly.
Just one.
Becky?
Oh, sorry.
Just a couple questions. So you had a slide up earlier that showed this, but we're thinking construction would start sometime in May?
That's our next slide. Yep.
I anticipate. Okay, real quick then, before you move on to there. So the buses coming down Paradise then, they would not have a problem making that right-hand turn?
I don't think a bus would have too much trouble there. It's more like a Walmart truck. They would really struggle.
Okay.
That's a 67-foot long truck.
Thank
That
you.
would struggle.
I anticipate your next slide.
Yeah, and one of the other options is Kamaikan, where if you kept Paradise down to Kamaikan, then up to Olson and across that way would be a way to alleviate that tight right turn. It does mean you keep part of that open. Part of my question, follow-up on this, is how much of the road of Main Street is going to be affected in this? I mean, everything you've been talking about has been sidewalks and parking. How much of the actual road is affected, or is that actually minimal work going to be done?
It depends on where we're at along Main Street, but generally speaking, most of the road will be under some form of excavation because of underground utilities. Water, sewer, storm, buried power, irrigation, all that. There'll be a lot of buried stuff out there.
Okay.
And it was pointed out earlier by Sean that you don't want to put a brand-new road in and then have your water main break on Main Street. This is the time you replace your utilities and you get that taken care of so you can at least have some good years on that.
Yes, sir. Any other questions on that? So is there a general feeling that a closure makes the most sense? Okay, thank you. Oh, wait, construction schedule and timing. So this is preliminary at this point. We've got a little bit more thinking to do, but we anticipate a contract award in late April at a city council meeting. The contractor would likely mobilize to the site mid-May. That we wouldn't have them do anything until school's out, but they might do anything major. But they might do things like start taking down light poles and bike racks and garbage cans and those types of things. And then when school lets out, then we give them the site. Then they go to town. So the end of May through the end of August, we think we can get to what we call substantial completion. And really what that means is The project is done enough to give the public access to it. So cars are driving down Main Street, people are on the sidewalks. What might not be completely done is maybe not all the lights are stood up, maybe the plantings aren't quite done, maybe some of the areas of the clay pavers are still fenced off because they're not completed yet. But it's essentially, it's open to the public. We think that can be done before the first home football game, is what we understand is a big deal from a Main Street standpoint. So then we get through that small rush, but the contractor can keep working in and amongst the public, right? So they can have September, some of October to do, and maybe at that point, the city is essentially done with the main project, Main Street. Maybe there's a ribbon cutting. We'll certainly leave that to you. But then the contractor goes away for the winter shutdown. Then, depending on what can be awarded in the contract, then the rest of the project is addressed. Grand and Davis and Olson and Pine Street and those four. That's how we see this happening. I think this is a better path for the city. The alternative is we let the contractor work on all of them simultaneously. And I don't think you want that. Any questions on that schedule?
Can I ask from the steering committee, what was their thoughts when you presented this to them?
They have not seen this schedule yet.
Okay.
I expect we'll hear from them though.
I think they're warming up right now, as a matter of fact. Just Eileen.
So where does the Grand Street improvements fit into this? Until the following year?
Yeah, 2024.
So I'm reading that correctly, okay.
Would there be the signal work on Grand as part of this? Because
There could be
you're talking about the
signal work,
smart signals, so that would at least impact the Grand.
Grand and Main.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And some lighting for the pedestrian crossway at Main and Grand, which has always been something that we're very concerned about.
Yep, that will be
So
part
we
of
can
the
take care of
signals.
that first year.
We can accommodate that, I
Okay.
believe, yes.
Okay. Because when we're making all these adjustments, we need to address some ones that are really serious right away. if we
Especially the
can.
safety ones.
Yeah.
Great point.
Ann? Okay, Eileen again.
Yeah, back to,
You asked the question, how does the committee feel? And I just seeing.
If you want to come up here to the microphone, Mike?
Really?
Well,
He has a shitty habit of interrupting me.
Mike Yates, building and owner downtown. Just watching what they've done and what they put together, I don't know how you guys are reacting, but I haven't heard any negative stuff. I hadn't seen this, and this looks really good compared to what I thought it might be. So if this can really happen where you're shutting down Main Street, you're doing it in segments, I think that's a great plan to do the sidewalks and everything. I mean, because I've done construction, not this large, but I understand the need to keep things tidy and neat and keep your contractors doing things, but you really need to make sure that they're not leaving a big mess along the way, because there's going to be businesses open, right? So the strategy, number one, that I saw that they came up with of doing the sidewalks incrementally from start to finish instead of tearing the whole sidewalk up all through downtown, that seems like a really good plan. And then telling the businesses, communicating with them, as Courtney was saying, on when they're going to do it, the best you can, right? So this is what we're doing, this is what's going on. The better communication is going to be there because, or is going to help a lot, because then you're not going to have businesses saying, what's going on, you know? And you're going to have less complaints coming to your office as well as to the contractors.
Okay.
But the dates that they have up there, if I was in a committee meeting right now and we were talking about this, I would say the same thing I'm going to say right now. That, to me, is very impressive. It actually is during the summertime. It's getting it to where it's functional in August. From what I'm hearing from Matt, is that really the goal is to get it where they can be finishing things up, but they got it somewhat functional at that point, and then wrapping it up for winter and not having a mess during the winter, and then restarting Grand Avenue. Or I said Grand, but Main Street, getting that done, and then doing Grand Avenue in the following spring.
Okay, Mark.
That seems reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you'll hear more in your steering committee meeting. So, Matt? You had a question?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yeah, excuse me, looping back to Courtney's elements on this, I want to make sure that we emphasize the successes that came out of that business owners meeting. Could you maybe give us a few of the real highlights that came out of that, and what people feel is going to work, and what were some of the concerns? I know you had quite a list up there on your slide, but I want to make absolutely certain that we touch on that so our listeners and our viewers can say that there's a through line here.
Right. I'm not actually an engineer. I know it's a moment when a spreadsheet turns out to be a real handy thing. What we were able to kind of work out to is that there's a matrix of communication, and our goal is always to make sure that the person who needs to know something knows it in a timely manner, and if it's urgent, that we use an urgent tool to communicate it to them. And so it was really helpful to work with the community to identify how do they like to be communicated to? How are they going to use communication that we provide? How do we make sure that there's an archive of information, but also that information can be rapidly disseminated as needed to customers, to their delivery drivers, to people that bring them deliveries? There's a lot of moving parts to what happens in downtown Pullman day in and day out between, the food delivery at 6 a.m. and closing down shop sometimes at 2 a.m. So some of the big wins, we're definitely recognizing that the business owners are thinking proactively. It was really exciting to see people in that room that I'd never seen before, which I think is really great. We want to try to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to prepare for this. It is a significant project, and as Matt said, we're going to find something weird in the street. It's going to take a lot of attention. So everything that we can do now to be proactive is really helpful. So it was great to see some new people. It was great to identify some communication tools that we might not have used, from Google Maps to the ways that some businesses use either text or email so that it can be rapidly forwarded rather than a phone call or even a video was helpful. And I think the biggest win is the curiosity from the businesses and the property owners about how do I use this as an opportunity to maybe reinvest in my property or reinvest in my business. And do you have connections to the Small Business Flex Fund or to the Shared Work Program that Jen Hackman has been able to bring up, so that I can make sure that my employees don't have to be laid off for the summer? How can I maybe keep them on part-time and loan them out to another business? And so it was really exciting to see our businesses partner together and realize, we're all about to go through something together. I'm trying to think of a good football metaphor, and I can't come up with one, but we're about to go through something together, and we're going to get there in September and October and in the fall of 2024. And it's going to be great, but it is definitely going to take some grit and some focus and some thoughtfulness from all sides. So I really appreciate the work that the city staff and our partners did to put that meeting together.
Great, thank you, Courtney.
Megan?
Just one more thing,
Go,
Matt.
sure.
Concern of mine is parking for people when the construction happens, and communicating where and when they can do that. Has any discussion been made around that?
Why, yes. In fact, that was a real point of conversation during the meeting on the 14th of December. And this is something that our consulting team is happy to provide the City of Pullman advice on, but it is a policy issue that the City of Pullman needs to pick up. There is concern from the business owners about making sure that off-street parking lots that are immediately adjacent to businesses are primarily available for customers and not for employees. And so the city of Pullman has an opportunity to maybe think about a temporary parking policy downtown that would prioritize keeping those lots available for high turnover. There's also opportunities for the city of Pullman to think about how they partner with, or think about how you partner with private property owners that will be affected. In some cases, some access to buildings that have residential units might be impacted. And so would the city of Pullman consider doing a one-off, 1-month lease of publicly owned parking spaces to private uses just during this project? There's a great opportunity to partner with WSU to use, I believe it's the green lot by the visitor center for public parking during this as well. It seems like it should be an off-season for WSU. We're happy to provide additional information, and we'll do so, but ultimately that is a City of Pullman policy item to pick up.
And with our great bus system, we can find parking lots different places that may not be full during the summer, where employees could park and our buses can transport them right to downtown. And we've got the great service. We can do it. Yeah, Francis?
Just as a follow-up on the parking, the wayfinding committee has been doing a lot of work identifying all the different parking areas, and then as a part of the wayfinding side, how do we do a better job signing to direct people to where the parking lots are and for them to be able to find where the parking lots are. So that committee has been communicating with Welch-Comer related to that piece.
And then just one more thing around signage. I know I've talked to Courtney about this and a couple other people, and I think it's great that part of your process is building in signage and communication with the business owners about what's happening, but kind of looking one step further about how the businesses are going to communicate with their customers during it. I'd like to, see if there's any way we could build into the bid, and I don't know if this can be done, about providing signage to our businesses that say, we're still open, please come in, so they're not putting everything on the business to try and communicate with their customers that they're open?
Oops, yes. So I think something like this, the bottom middle photograph, right? I don't think that is a stretch to have that in the contract, actually, to provide things like that. Now, if businesses want to have sandwich boards outside their place, that would clearly be on them. But something like that seems like reasonable to me. Any other discussion on the schedule? Okay. So we're almost done. So next meeting, between now and the next meeting, we will have talked with staff quite a bit about funding and the construction costs. Frankly, the construction industry is it's kind of the Wild West right now. It's expensive and sometimes more expensive. So we'll be having those conversations. We'll come with a full report next month, into next month. When we do come to you, we will probably be asking you to help us determine priorities. And the way that will work, the way we avoid boxing Pullman into a corner is we establish what we're pretty sure we can afford, okay? We based on our estimates, we think we can afford this element and that element, and we call that the base bid. And then anything beyond that, we call those add alternates. And so we design them and we bid them, but you don't necessarily have to award the alternates if you just don't have the funding for it. And so we'll come with a recommendation, but there'll be a short discussion about if we have to prioritize those. Did that make sense? Okay. I don't have any detail yet, but we will have a lot of detail at the next meeting.
Okay.
Just a question follow-up I had. Is there anything that has been previously talked about in meetings that has already been moved and taken off the table? Or is everything still as originally communicated? I'm hearing some rumblings of people saying things have been taken off, and I'm not seeing anything taken off, and so that's why I just want to ask that question.
No, sir, the only way something would be taken off the table is at your direction.
Great,
So-
thank you.
Was there another? Okay. All right, last slide. So this is just a quick reminder. Here's where we're at. We'll be meeting with our steering committee later this month. I can already tell that's going to be a great meeting. We'll be back at the end of next month. I think it's February 28th for a 90% presentation, and then we're onward. So with that, I'm happy to answer any other questions, but I think we've yammered on.
Okay, Eileen?
enough.
Yeah, point number 12 down here is the coordination with WSDOT. How's that going? Can you give us a feeling? Are we good status? Are we?
Yeah, so far so good. The DOT has been fantastic to work with. Now that you have given direction on the closure, we need to take that to the next level. Like, hey, what are the details here in logistics? So that'll start happening this week.
Excellent, thank you.
All right.
Okay,
Matt, thank you very much. Courtney, Joe, thank you.
thank you very much.
Really appreciate it. We now move to the public comment period. This is for people who would like to make a comment about any final action the city would be taking tonight. And I'm open the thing right now, if anyone would like to make a comment about any final action that the city is taking tonight on our agenda. Seeing none, we'll close public comment, move to consent agenda. And this item here, council's had a chance to review these items. Do I hear a motion to read by title only?
So moved. Second.
Moved and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, Thad O'Sullivan, our city attorney.
The first item is a motion to dismiss or dispense with the reading of the meeting minutes of December 13, 2022, and approve them as submitted. Item number 2 is a motion to approve the purchase of 2 new mowers and attachments. Item number 3 is a motion to authorize the submittal of a capital grant application for 1 electric transit bus to WSDOT. Item number 4 is a motion to approve the transfer of sales tax revenue to CIP Reserve Fund for 2022 Q4 in the amount of $300,097.00. Item number 5 is a motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks numbered 108793 through 108810, electronic transfers 89, 90, 939, and 945 through 950, payroll check numbered 74925, payroll direct deposits numbered 81492 through 81838, totaling $1,506,402.40. Item 6 is a motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks numbered 108811 through 108890, totaling $725,720.27. Item 7, a motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable check numbered 108891, totaling $66,224.79. A motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks numbered 108892 through 108992, totaling $1,456,012.98. Item 9 is a motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks numbered 108993 through 109002, electronic transfers 91, 92, 951, 952, and 954 through 956, and payroll direct deposit numbered 81927-82268, totaling $65,196.91. Item 10 is a motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks numbered 109003 through 109060, totaling $2,837,538.91. Item 11 is a motion to approve disbursements for payroll direct deposits numbered 81839 through 81926, totaling $163,385.61. Item 12 is resolution number R-1-23, a resolution accepting a waterline easement granted by Clearwater Health, authorizing the execution of said easement and providing for other matters properly related thereto. And the final item is item 13, resolution number R-2-23, a resolution accepting a public stormwater easement granted by Atani Development 3, Inc., authorizing execution of said easement and providing for other matters properly related thereto.
Is there any item the council would like out for discussion? Seeing none, the consent agenda consists of items 1 through 13. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, we now move to the regular agenda. First item is a motion to approve and authorize execution of a library collective bargaining agreement. With this, our city administrator, Mike Urban.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, council. Before you tonight is the 2023 through 2025 collective bargaining agreement with Teamsters Local 690, specifically the group that's representing the library. We began negotiating this contract with the Teamsters last summer, and they've come to an agreement and ratified the contract on December 8th. Was not in time to get on the last council agenda, but it's before you tonight. Highlights of this include a 2.5% wage increase for each of the 3 years of the contract, and adding state and federal Juneteenth holiday language. Staff wants to really thank the Teamsters Local 690 for working through us as we were working through a HR manager change and getting this thing done in a very timely manner. And with that, staff recommends that the council approves the contract as presented.
Any questions, or do I hear a motion?
Move to adopt the contract as presented. Second.
Moved and seconded. You want to read that, Thad, the motion?
A motion to approve and authorize execution of the 2023-2025 library collective bargaining agreement with Teamsters Union Local 690.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, now we move to item number 2, which is an ordinance, and this is adopting the biennial budget amendments. Again, Mike Urban.
Thank you. So ordinance 23-1 has to do exactly with the previous item. Now that we've made some changes to salaries and benefits, we like to bring the budget amendment along with the contract very simultaneously. So everything that you see in here is based on passing the last item. Exhibit A, you'll look at the bottom, the regular wages for the 23 calendar year is wages and benefits is an increase of $27,659, and Exhibit B is $58,795. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, and staff recommends adopting ordinance 23-1 as presented.
Any questions? Then do I hear a motion?
Move to adopt ordinance number 23-1.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thad?
Ordinance number 23-1, and ordinance amending ordinance number, I'm sorry, I was reading the wrong,
You're right.
okay, sorry.
22-25.
Adopted November 29th, 2022, and entitled An Ordinance Adopting a Biennial Budget for the City of Pullman for the Biennium 2023 to 2024.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number 3 tonight is a motion to approve and authorize execution of a Public Works collective bargaining agreement. Again, Mike Urban.
Thank you. Very similar to the last two items, the first one in particular, we began negotiating with the Teamsters Local 690, the Public Works Division of the bargaining unit last summer. And through the spring, or through the fall, we reached an agreement which the bargaining unit ratified on December 15th, 2022. Highlights of this agreement are a wage increase of 4% over 2023. And then in 2024 and 2025, very similar to other contracts we've done, based on CPIW in August over August, a 2% increase as a floor and a 4% increase as a ceiling. Other highlights to this include, again, the Juneteenth holiday language, and then additional language clarifying on-call processes, procedures, and pay. We, again, want to extend our gratitude to the other folks that were bargaining this with us while we were going through an HR manager change. And it went very smooth, and that's why this is in front of you today for adoption. We recommend adopting the bargaining CBA as presented.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
Move to adopt
Second.
the approval of the contract.
Moved and seconded. Thad?
Item 3, a motion to approve and authorize execution of the 2023-2025 Public Works Collective Bargaining Agreement with Teamsters Union Local 690.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number 4. Now the ordinance to pay for it. Okay?
Right, now the ordinance to pay for it, 23-2, very similar to the last ordinance that was passed. Exhibit A, that's the 23 amount, regular wages and benefits, $161,679. And Exhibit B, expected for 2024, $349,616. Staff recommends adopting this as presented as well.
Do I hear a motion on this?
Move to adopt ordinance number 23-2.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thad?
Ordinance number 23-2, an ordinance amending ordinance number 22-25, adopted November 29, 2022, and entitled an ordinance adopting a biennial budget for the city of Pullman for the biennium 2023-2024.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, council.
We now move to item number 5 on the agenda tonight. It's a resolution approving a final plat of Sunnyside Heights Subdivision number 12. With this, our Deputy Public Works Director, Clayton Forsman.
All right, thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. So the proposed subdivision in front of you tonight for your consideration is Sunnyside Heights Subdivision number 12. And on this slide, I'm just highlighting the location of that subdivision in yellow. So it's on the north side of Center Street, and it's generally between Corral Court and Atani Drive. The developer is Atani Development, and they've reached that stage where they're now ready to move forward with the final plat. So on this slide, I'm really just trying to show again, that subdivision in yellow, and point out that really this is the last section along Center Street that is undeveloped. So this will kind of fill in that gap. The total area is right about 3 acres. And then this is the last slide, just kind of zoomed into that subdivision. The final plat that is proposed tonight will create 12 lots. What I've done here is highlighted 2 streets in yellow. So the right-of-way for those streets will be dedicated with the final plat. So at this current stage, not all of the subdivision improvements are complete. So in order to guarantee construction of those remaining improvements and to warrant the maintenance of those improvements, the developer has been made aware of the security that's required. And they have executed a letter of direction, and that's included in your council packet. Also, to note, all applicable conditions from the preliminary plat are being satisfied with this final plat and the construction of those deferred improvements. Lastly, since this subdivision was vested in 2017, and that would be at the time of the preliminary plat submittal and approval. It is vested under those current, or the standards at that time required just a 3-year time frame on sidewalk. So this is the last development that Etani has under that old 3-year rule. All future final plats that they're looking at in the future will be under the 1-year rule. And staff recommends council approve the final plat, and I'd be glad to take any questions.
Any questions? Eileen?
Just to clarify for the public, Atani's intention for this is single-family homes?
I believe they're going to be doing duplexes and some townhouses.
Okay, because I know that's going to come up, and I noticed the size of these lots would certainly accommodate that, even a triplex, or maybe even a quad at 9,000 square feet. So, yeah, there's probably more to the story here, but I guess that's where we're at for tonight. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? If not, do I hear a motion on this resolution?
Move to adopt resolution number R-3-23.
Second.
Moved and seconded. That?
Resolution number R-3-23, a resolution approving the final plat of Sunnyside Heights Subdivision number 12 and authorizing the mayor and the Finance and Administrative Services Director to sign the final plat.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you, council.
Discussion items. And we do have one council member who could not make it here tonight. And since we were talking about boards, commissions, and committee assignments, it was suggested that perhaps we could do this discussion at another council meeting. We have a workshop planned for next week, which we would have time to be able to talk about it. And perhaps Nathan should be healed up by that time and could be here. So if that is okay with the council, let us talk about that the next time, so we at least have all the council members present for that.
Yep.
Okay. With that, is there any new business to come before the council tonight? Seeing none, at this point, we're going to notify you that the council will adjourn for an executive session pursuant to consider the selection of site or acquisition of real estate by lease or purchase when public knowledge regarding such consideration could cause a likelihood of increased price. To review negotiations on the performance of a publicly bid contract when public knowledge regarding such consideration could cause a likelihood of increased costs. The executive session will last approximately 20 minutes. If it becomes necessary to extend that, we will make an announcement. The council does not anticipate taking any action following the executive session. With that, we will now, it's 8:42. We'll convene an executive session at 8:47 or 46. 5 minutes. You ready? We are extending the executive session for an additional 10 minutes. That takes us then to 9:16. We're at another 5 minutes to the executive session. We'll now be at 9:20 and 30 seconds. We're now extending executive session, again, another 5 minutes to now 9:26.
City Council is extending their executive session 5 more minutes, 5 minutes.
Okay,
Move to adjourn.
that's Becky, and can you do a second?
Second to adjourn.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye, okay, there is a unanimous, oh, there.